What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. So for a long time, I have really wanted like a full-time Fendered bike, but I've never made it happen. I've put Fenders on different bikes in different iterations, and there's been pluses and minuses to both those situations. So in this video, I want to talk about what I got going on in my latest build with Fenders, and then also talk about some of the other kinds of Fenders and what I've done before and what I don't like and what I do like about them. So there was a night a few weeks ago with the Gunnar. We were going out. It had been raining all day. It looked like it was going to rain into the evening. I was still going to meet my friends. I'm like, when I traded for this frame, in the trade, I got Fenders for it, but I had never messed with them. I ride this bike for mountain biking and stuff like that and all the gnarly off-road stuff we do. So I didn't really want to put Fenders on the bike. And then when we were going to go on our bike tour, which I was going to have a little bit less gnarly off-road stuff, I thought maybe I should Fender up before then. But then I second-guessed myself just thinking about, you know, the idea of picking up sticks and them getting caught up in here, and I was a little worried about that. So anyways, I ended up installing the Fenders really quick because of this rain thing, realized I didn't have any washers, so I'm like, well, I'm gonna install them real quick anyways. I'll get them kind of spaced right, and then I could fix that later. So anyways, that is what I've done since then. The temperature has dropped and we've had a mix of rain and snow. So it has been nice to have this bike with the Fenders on it. I also, when I was doing the washers, found myself having to adjust a couple things. The one Fender was banging on the disc brake, one of the Grotech equals. So I adjusted that so it wouldn't be an issue anymore. I think another thing that I'm gonna end up doing is adjusting these for maximum clearance. I noticed how like you have all that room with the clip here to pull this up. There's not much room to pull these out any farther, but I think I could just get more clearance all the way through. And as someone who does ride gnarly off-road stuff, I think it makes the most sense to do that with my bike. So same thing here, pulling this up on the clip. You could see how much clearance there is in the Fender here and then how much tighter I have it becoming around here. And with these, I have a little bit more room as well. So kind of maxing out the space for now. We did end up going out for a bike ride that was pretty gnarly, and I didn't end up having issues picking up anything and getting it stuck in there. Though I know I've been on other rides with friends, like my buddy Ben who I ride with all the time, who we were about to hit some off-road stuff, and he was on his commuter that he rides all the time with Fenders, and he's like, I don't want to go that way with this bike. It's just going to get the Fenders ruined. That is one thing that does happen, and it is a problem for an off-road bike. So this is not my ideal bike to leave Fenders on. I just, with the fluctuation in temperatures and stuff like that, I didn't feel we'd be able to be doing any mountain biking or anything like that around now. And so I'm kind of going with it, and I'm going to decide if I want to pull them back off. So I do have other options to Fender bike. This is my old Trek. This is my winter bike. Has the studded tires on here. Probably be getting this out soon if winter stays the way it is. This is a bike that I did have with Fenders on it, and I still own one of the Fenders. You could see I still have the little plastic piece that would have held the Fender back in the day. The problem I found with having my winter bike with Fenders on it is that me and Ben had gone out a couple times riding the weird off-road stuff we do, unofficial trails, and when I got out into the snow and ice just built up there and enough that it actually did start to clog up my tires. So I found for a winter bike that was meant to be an adventure bike, not so much a commuter bike, that the Fenders became a problem for me. The problem I had with the Fenders on my winter bike actually turned out to be a problem that might have saved my life. I'll tell that story in a minute. I think I first want to break down what to me are kind of the 4 different levels of having a bike with Fenders. So kind of just the lowest, simplest level of Fender you could have is one that just clips on. So these basically just clip on your seat post. This one has just a little, you know, strap type thing. Why everyone doesn't own one of these at the least, I don't understand. Why you would ever want your butt or your back to have a line of mud on it is ridiculous. So these are just a simple thing to strap on, and it's just to keep you a little bit dry. I have an older one. This one actually just had a thumb screw. The first time we ever did a channel meetup, I literally dropped that thumb screw, it rolled away, and I've never been able to find it. So I basically just need to get something that fits back in there or reach out to this company. This one actually came then also with another very simple thing. It's strapped to your down tube, and it was just basically a little wider to keep a little bit of the mud and water from kicking up on you. The good thing about these for me is I ride tall bikes, so there's plenty of room on the seat post for them, even if I have bags. But if you ride smaller bikes, they now make ones that go to your seat stays, so they sit a little farther back. And if you have a dropper or anything like that, it won't have an effect. And then even below that, there's ones that just go underneath your saddle. I've even seen some professional cyclists, road cyclists, having them. So to me, the next step up is the ones that are semi-permanent. I don't know, I said 4 levels of fenders. Everything's a spectrum in cycling, you know, cross bikes to gravel bikes to mountain bikes, where the lines are all blurred these days. Who cares? These are what I'm defining as the next step, like the semi-permanent. So these ones basically just, you know, you're just strapping them here onto your fork. I don't have the rear one anymore, but it would just strap on here and here. But then I say semi-permanent because you are bolting them on here. So these are pretty quick to remove and put on. So yeah, those would be the ones that I would say are, you know, easiest to get into the full fender, they're not just going to protect you, they're going to start to protect your bike. The thing that happened with this bike is the rear fender got ruined, so I would just use one of those clip-on ones I just mentioned on the back when I took this bike on a tour. So I had a full fender on the front and then a clip-on the back, and it was just kind of a good enough solution for me. So I'd already mentioned the Gunnar and the way these ones are installed with just a little bit more permanence than the last set, where you actually use the, you know, this one's got the eyelets here, but you know, if you had quick releases, there's usually eyelets on both sides there, you know, bolting on here, and the rear, you know, bolting on here and here and here. I think one thing a lot of people like to look for is to get these double on both levels, just gives it a little bit more stability. These ones you could tell that Otis, when he first had put them on here, he had bent them to fit better. And that's what I said when I added more washers and spacers. This was rubbing on the brake and I had to space that out a little more. Basically, you just play around with them a little bit till you get them till they're not rubbing and whatever. And then I would say finally the highest level of having fenders, these are Honjos. I bought these a long time ago to put on one of my road bikes. Number of candidates over here. I would really like to put them on my Trek because that's the road bike I ride the most. Neo retro type build, but these are full custom installs, bunch of different hardware. You're drilling the holes, you're measuring everything, you're making them permanent. Basically, you're putting these on and leaving them on, and then they should run silent with no noise, and they should be great. But as a lot of you have already said in the comments of other videos, and people I know personally who talk about it, you think you're going over to a friend who's gonna help you install those, and you think like, oh, take a little time, and it's a 7-8 hour full day of getting it right. The thing too, for me to know if I did put them on one of these vintage bikes, I would have to also dimple them by the stays, because I tend to max out my tire sizes on these bikes. So yeah, it is a real job to do those. And I know some people are gonna be like, I've done it a million times, it's easy. Cool. Most of us, this is a true custom, and it's, most people believe, pain in the ass job to do. I do, however, think putting on these Honjos, or you know how Bell Orange makes all the beautiful metal fenders like that too, would be totally worth it once it was done, and you would just have that commuter, that bike that you rode on the road that just was always the bike you chose when you want to stay dry. One other thing I also have here are some vintage French Fenders, and these are pretty cool. If you look, this one is kind of integrated with a rack. It's integrated with those lights and all that run by rubbing on the tire, kind of the original version of a dynamo, or a version of dynamo. These I think would be really cool to install on one of my old French bikes, or even my commuter single speed. It might take a little doing, as I already mentioned, I tend to max out my tires, so it wouldn't be as straightforward as it could be. But yeah, I think these are pretty cool. A friend just gave them to me and I would love to get them onto something. So just more when it comes to a why of fenders, like, because I know a lot of people tend to think, well, if it's pouring rain, you're gonna get wet anyways, it doesn't matter. Well, one would be, it's been raining all day, you're gonna ride your bike later. It's not raining anymore, but the roads are soaked. So fenders are gonna make a big difference to keep you dry there. The other thing though is the stuff that's coming off the road is way dirtier and way grittier than the rain. It's not just about keeping that dirt and grit off you, but keeping that off your bike, keeping that out of your components, your drivetrain and stuff like that. That is one of the huge advantages of fenders, and one of the reasons that I really would like them too, beyond just the idea of I wanna go ride my bike in the rain. So in the last few videos, I already mentioned that I was going to talk about fenders coming up here. So a couple people did mention what they thought were two negatives that I don't think are. The first one being weight. Almost all the fenders I showed here weigh practically nothing. They don't weigh more than the bags I put on my bike or the jackets I bring when I'm going to be riding a bike with fenders. And this is one thing I've always said about weight on bikes in general. If you're just riding mostly for fun and you're not competitive, a lot of us could lose more weight right there than fenders would ever weigh. So I'm not body shaming anyone. Like, nobody needs to go out and lose weight. I'm just saying if I really was a weight weenie, the weight is right here. It's not my fenders. The second thing would be aesthetics. Some people said a bike doesn't look good with fenders. I don't even mind the Gunnar with these, you know, black, these are Planet Bike fenders. But man, when you get into the Velo Orange or the Honjos I showed, and Velo Orange has a couple different ones, the hammered ones, the wavy ones, the smooth ones. I think a bike with fenders that are fitted well and are those kind of cool ones actually make the aesthetic even nicer. Makes the bike look really cool and like someone who really knows what they're doing, especially in our space if we're talking alt cycling. I don't know, they make a lot of sense to me. I've also, over the years, when I made videos, had a lot of people say, how could you not have like a full fendered commuter bike? Here's the thing, I live at the studio here. So we're in the basement, this is my workshop. I live and work upstairs and then upstairs, so I don't have to get to work every day on a bike. I do like to often commute to my gigs, and that is kind of where I like the idea of fenders. But the other thing is, if it's pouring down rain, I carry thousands of dollars worth of electronics. Sometimes the bike just isn't worth it, and I am someone who does own a car. So I do want a number of different fender setups, and as you can see, I'm at no loss for options to, you know, have some bikes be set up that way. Another thing I'll mention is my gravel bike, my Raleigh, which would be a good candidate possibly for fenders, but might have some issues. Shot some footage upstairs where I have that bike sitting, so I'll throw it back to that real quick. So I do remember Otis had this bike when it was his setup with fenders as well, because I know the original steel fork, he had actually filed it down through here to be able to fit the fenders on, and I could see that there are some markings, and I just remember riding with him when he had it, but where there used to be where it's rubbed off the paint a little bit. Oh. That's not good. These Renee Harrod's tires, well, this rear one needs to be replaced anyways. I was trying to see how far I could get it to run. So anyways, this would be an option, even though these are the widest tires I've ever had on this bike at 44. Not that you could tell when it's flat, but I think I could fender this bike. Let me know if you are someone who does have a fork like this, because I've replaced this, the original steel fork, with this carbon fork, and there are no eyelets for fenders here. But you could see on the inside of the fork, a little of the ways up, there are eyelets. And I wonder if that is what that's for, because it still does have a hole up here too as well. So I guess if I ever wanted to fender this bike, I could look into see how I could modify something to work with that, or if someone sells something specific for these kind of forks. Let me know down below. The other thing I'd mentioned earlier is how the average fender install on this bike actually might have saved my life. So as mentioned, the front fender is now on the Marin, but when I had the rear fender on this bike, it kept kind of slipping with the way those things were clipped on since they're not full bolt-ons. It was kind of annoying me on a little bit of a snowy night. We were at a stoplight over by the old Goodyear headquarters, and we started to roll, and I reached back and that fender was bothering me, and I was trying to pull it into position and all this stuff. When I looked up to start go, a car had sailed through a traffic light, made a turn, and ran directly into Ben, sending him completely over the top of the car and crashing down on the pavement. I would have been inside of him, and I would have hit that car head on, maybe even worse. So that fender messing up, I've always joked, has actually saved my life. And there was a while there where I never messed with them for that way. I'm like, fenders get in the way, even though that happened to be a weird positive of a fender getting in the way. So as I had mentioned before, I know a lot of you know way more about fenders than I do, so I'd love to hear your opinions. I didn't even get into the idea of, I know on Sheldon Brown's website, they say they prefer plastic over metal because they believe they make less noise and stuff like that. I think that also depends on the install a lot. I will say that on my Marin, I've run that with Gravel Kings, and if you're on something like a crushed limestone path, it's constantly kicking up those little stones, and it can be very annoying with the metal sounding fenders. Is that worth not going that route? I don't know. I did talk about mud flaps, so you know, if you do have a full fender install, I do think if they don't come with those little mud flaps that go a little farther down, I think those are definitely worth it to keep even more off your shoes. The ones on the Gunnar are Planet bikes. I know a lot of you guys have mentioned, what is that, PDX, Pacific Design Works, PDW. They're another brand that sells all different kinds of fenders on every different level of how complicated you want the installation to be, or how wide your tires are and all that kind of thing. I don't have any of that brand, but I know a ton of you guys swear by them. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. This is just, like I always say, I am not a bike reviewer. I've not ridden every kind of thing. I don't think I'm the smartest guy in the room. I just own a lot of cameras, and I like to make YouTube videos about the bikes that I have and the thousands of miles I ride. So that'll be it for this one. Thanks as always for the support. Give this video a like, it does help. We do have a store below, and if you really want to support us, we have channel memberships, which make it so it's a little bit more worthwhile to make so many videos, I guess. I don't know, I do it anyways, but thanks. See you in the next one, peace.